So we got that sorted out, and the issue was that we had in the animator handler, the wrong name was being passed for the vertical movement. Okay, so I'm going to go to screen. I'm going to go to share your screen, click on screens, and grab my one that's got my game on it. And go live. And go back to my... I'm looking at Jack's.
I stopped streaming.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to my... It shows me that I'm looking at your screen, which is blank. I want to see my screen.
I just double clicked on your name and it popped yours back up.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And then I want to go to also have chat open. Okay. Good to go. So we now got everything set up and everybody's working. Is everybody working? Everyone else working correctly?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build out the blend tree of the animations. So this is there's just no simple way to do this. So bear with me while we do it. And it's important that you follow all the steps, because if you don't, your blend tree will be messed up. So coming back to my animator, making sure that I have picked my soldier base, so I have the soldier's animator. I'm going to right click and do create state. And instead of doing empty, I'm going to pick from new blend tree. We're going to have a new blend tree. The blend tree has the stupid name of blend tree. So in the inspector, I'm going to left click up here and call this locomotion. Okay. And I'm going to double click on it, and it will take me into a blend tree. So now I am inside the blend tree. The way you can tell that is that in the top here, instead of saying base layer, which is what it said a minute ago, it now says base layer locomotion. So you're drilling down. Double clicking drills into the state. Okay. So I'm going to, you see that inside the state, sorry, let me go back out to base layer again. The blend tree is called locomotion, but when you get inside of it, the blend tree is still called blend tree again. I'm going to rename this blend tree to locomotion-blend tree, so that the actual blend tree itself is still identified, but I know it's the locomotion one later on when I have problems and can't figure out where anything is. Okay. The blend type. Currently it's set to one-dimensional. We actually want it to be two-dimensional because we have an X and Y value that we're going to be able to pass to this thing. So we're going to pick two-dimensional. And we want simple directional. Yes, we're going to change it to freeform later when we do something else. Okay, so notice now that it says the parameters I'm going to use are anim vertical movement and anim vertical movement. It has both of them. The first one is your X value, and the second one is your Y value. So the first one should actually be anim horizontal movement, and the second one should be anim vertical movement. It's just in the same order as the ordered pairs you did in math class. The X value is first, and the Y value is second. The horizontal should be first, and the vertical should be second. Okay. Now, I'm going to add 5 motion fields. I'm going to click plus here, and it's going to say, what do you want to add? I don't want to add another new blend tree underneath this, although you can to make animations look really smooth. Your blend trees can get really crazy. But I'm just going to click add motion field. I'm going to add a total of 5 of them. And once I add my second one, it's going to give me a graph. But I'm just going to keep adding them and ignoring that for now. So I'm going to have 3, 4, and 5. It's going to default to some values, but we're going to change all of these. So the first one should be 0, 0, and should have no motion associated with it. We're going to drag some animations in here in a second. The second row should say 1 for the X and 0 for the Y. The third row should be 0 for the X and 1 for the Y. And notice that I have a little gray dot appears. If I move this gray dot, it'll change it, but I want to set it back to 0 and 1. The fourth line should be -1 and 0. And the last line should be 0 and -1. Okay. What this says is when my actual values for my animation horizontal movement and my animation vertical movement move around on this graph, I want you to blend between the animations that I'm going to set at these points. So we want to drag very specific animations into very specific rows. So I'm going to go to my go back to my assets folder, and I'll go to my Toon Soldiers Armies, Animation, Handgun, and notice that my blend tree has vanished, but I'm just going to click on it again here in the screen, left click on it, it comes back. So I want to find my Handgun Combat Idle. Remember, this is the game object for it. I'm going to expand this down until I get the actual animation. Left click on my blend tree, and we'll drag Handgun Combat Idle into the first row. What that says is, if my X and Y values are 0 or close to 0, I want to be playing my idle animation, which is correct. Then I'm going to double click on the movement folder, or click on the movement folder once, sorry. And again, I keep clicking back here on my blend tree to bring the blend tree back up as it keeps trying to hide it from me. And I'm going to drag my, I'm just going to expand these so I can see them all. We're going to get to sprint much later, but right now, the second row is when my position in my X is 1 and my Y is 0. So it's this value right here. And if I move it around, you can see that's the one that's affected. So X is 1, Y is 0. The center of my graph is at 0, 0. When my X value is 1 and my Y is 0, I want to be using my combat run right. So I'm going to drag the Handgun Combat Run Right animation into that field. When my next row says my position of X is 0 and my Y is 1, which means I'm looking at this node right here, 0 and 1, and that means I'm running forward. So I want to use Handgun Combat Run. Drag that into this field. The next value is -1, 0, so that's over here. I'm going to use Handgun Combat Run Left. And the last one is going to be this node here behind me when my X is 0, but my Y is -1, meaning I'm moving backwards, and we're going to use Handgun Combat Walk Back. And drag that in there. So you should have idle, then run right, then run left, and then walk back. Your X and Y should be 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, -1, 0, and 0, -1. Is everybody with me? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I think.
Okay. Okay. We're going to find out really quickly. Let's start playing around with this. But first, we're not going to go into the game. I'm just going to come up here and grab this red circle, and I'm going to drag it around. If I move to the left, you'll see that it's starting to kind of change what animation I'm doing. If I move over to the right, it's still changing. Move it forward and move it backwards. But no animation is playing. But I can press play and drag the red circle around to different points, and you'll see how it blends through different animations. If I close to the center, I'm idle, running to the right, running to the left, running forward, and walking backwards. And this is just me manually changing what the value is. It's not doing anything in the game because the game itself isn't playing. It's just a preview so I can see how my animations blend together. And they blend together pretty well. I can also accomplish the same trick by, if I drag this, If you hold on your mouse wheel, you can move around in the state tree. So you can move your locomotion where you can see it a little more clearly. I'm going to press play just so I can see the animation. And notice that there's a blue line connecting my Handgun Combat Idle in the blend tree up to the idle animation. What it's saying is the value that I currently have for horizontal and vertical are close enough to 0 that I'm playing the idle animation, which is what you told me to do. I can manually scrub these. I can run to the left and to the right, and it will move the graph for me. And if I move forwards and backwards, it'll move on the graph for me. I can also see what happens if I crank them all the way up to the corners. And you'll see that it's kind of trying to do a blend between running to the right and running forward. And as I reduce my horizontal movement, it will straighten out and run straight forward. So the movement's going to look really pretty because it's going to blend nicely based on my input. So the reason that I think it was a good idea to put this aside and break it down into a couple of sessions is because there's a lot going on here. We had to set up the graph, we had to set up the parameters, you had to understand how animations worked, we had to make changes to several scripts, and we had to create our new animation handler script, all of which we've done. And now, the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, it should work in the game. So, I'm going to unpress this so it'll stop running. If you leave it pressed, it doesn't change anything. It's just going to be running in the background. I'm going to click up here at the top left of my animator controller to click on base layer. And you see I've got handgun combat idle and locomotion. But remember that my idle is already baked into my locomotion, so I don't need to have the idle animation by itself at all. So I'm going to right click on it and press delete. It's going to turn my locomotion blend tree yellow because it is now the only animation, so it's just going to go to this by default. If I go to the scene and I click, let's leave my animator highlighted, select my soldier, and I press play. Now, when I run forward, he runs forward. When I run to the right, his legs are moving in the correct direction. When I run to the left, and when I walk backwards. If I want to see what's going on in the blend tree itself, I can double click on the locomotion blend tree and keep going. And you'll see that it sets my vertical amount to close to 1, my horizontal amount to close to 0, and the blue line up here is indicating that the handgun combat run animation has been selected. If I run to the right, it's going to say that my run right has been selected. Move to the left. It shows that run left has been highlighted and walk backward. So let's stop that. Click maximize on play. Press play. And now our character moves around the game world in a much more convincing way, and he still is aiming his pistol the entire time, which is great. There is a couple of things we want to clean up. Right now, when he runs backwards, he's moving exactly as fast as he does when he's running forward, and we want that to be different. We're also going to talk about how to limit him so he's moving not quite as fast when he's strafing. We want his forward run to be his fastest, his strafing left and right to be a little bit slower, and his walk back to be the slowest of all. The way I had tuned the original game and the way I think is correct is if you're running forward, you can outrun a zombie. If you're walking backwards, the zombies can outrun you. So if you're pointing a gun at them, they're gaining on you. But if you're running away from them, you can get away. And that's, our default zombie from our on our very first take. And we may add more zombie types. Maybe some zombies are significantly faster than you and can catch you even if you're running. Or we may have some zombies that are always way slower than you, even if you're running backwards. So we'll pick that up next time because that's going to require, we're going to make some more changes to our code. We're going to make some changes to our movement code to handle that change. And we'll see that reflected in the blend tree. This is a lot, though. Does everybody feel comfortable with where we are on this?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. I know animation has a lot going on in it, but it's the thing that makes the difference between a perfectly fine game and a great game is good animations. Because if the player doesn't feel like the character is responding to their inputs, they get bored way faster. And you've all played games where the controls just aren't right and it just is irritating. So anyway, that's all I have for this week. And next week we will put some stuff in here to update his movement speed, and we'll start putting in the gun, and the shooting will probably come the week after that, I think. So, all right. Well, go team.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.